Would Canada be better off as a republic? I'm Jared Wesley from University of Alberta, and we get into that on today's Fact or Fiction. Republicanism is one among many different forms of government that have existed throughout human history. In its most basic form, it involves a group of citizens getting together to select a smaller group of citizens to make choices on behalf of the entire polity. When you look at it like that, republicanism does look more favorable compared to other forms of government like monarchies. But this view neglects the fact that other forms of government, including monarchies, have developed representative functions and structures. Constitutional monarchies, like Canada, for instance, look similar in some ways to the theoretical republic, but differ in important ways as well. So let's compare presidential democracies like the United States with modern constitutional democracies like Canada. In presidential systems, voters select members of the legislative branch as well as the chief executive, or the president. In parliamentary democracies like Canada, voters select members of the legislative branch, who then play an indirect role in selecting the chief executive, the head of government, otherwise known as the prime minister. So there are important differences between these two types of government. In one case, parliamentary democracies, the head of state and the head of government are different people, while those two roles are fused in presidential republics. Parliamentary democracy, meanwhile, features what we call a fusion of powers between the legislative and executive branches. The prime minister is usually drawn from the legislature, heads up that lawmaking body, and as a result has a lot of power over the direction of government. In presidential systems, citizens directly elect both and provide legitimacy to both the legislative and executive branches. And they have what we call a separation of powers, where the president does not make laws and must negotiate, in many instances, with Congress or the legislative branch in order to pass any piece of legislation. So would Canada be better off as a republic? Many think so. There are some who feel that there's too much power concentrated in the office of the prime minister, and that by bringing in a republican set of checks and balances, a separation of powers, the legislative branch may be able to hold him or her more accountable. Others feel that constitutional monarchies like Canada feature a system of elitism that favors one particular group of people who are traditionally advantaged when it comes to politics: white, typically well-heeled, typically English-speaking men. Others look at Canada's system of constitutional monarchy and see a head of state that is foreign, and they would like to see someone who is born on Canadian soil to serve in that role of head of state. Still others look longingly south of the border and admire other elements of the American system and would like to import republicanism here in Canada. Another group of people look at Canada's system of constitutional monarchy as a symbol of past and present settler colonialism. Quebec nationalists view the Queen very differently than folks in Ontario, for example. And Indigenous people look at the Crown's role throughout Canadian history to this current moment as abrogating certain obligations and agreements that have been made over time, including treaties. So if Canada's system of parliamentary democracy is so bad, why wouldn't we move towards republicanism? Would it be easy? The short answer is no. Replacing responsible government as we have in Canada today with a republican system would require nothing short of a major overhaul of Canada's constitutional order. Making changes like that to Canada's constitutional documents would require unanimous support from the Parliament as well as all 10 provincial legislatures. As a result, many Republicans have turned to incremental reforms, removing, for example, references to the Crown from oaths of citizenship. That's one goal they have. Removing symbols of the monarchy from things like Canadian currency. Others have sought reforms to change the way that we select governors general and lieutenant governors, looking for a made in Canada and perhaps more democratic means of selecting Canada's head of state. But a lot of the problems that Republicans point to when it comes to Canada's system of responsible government have also been championed by reformers who would seek to keep Canada's system of parliamentary democracy and simply improve it. In particular, placing checks on the Prime Minister has been a cry from reformists for decades. Empowering MPs, empowering the legislature as a whole to hold the executive accountable can be done with or without moving to a system of republicanism. So, should Canada adopt a system of republican presidentialism? Or should it look for more incremental reforms that would empower the legislature within its current system of responsible government? Clearly, the move to replace responsible government with republicanism would be an arduous constitutional quagmire. As a result, we might look to other reforms that place those necessary checks on our executive.